You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sarah J. Loureiro.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Uplevel Your Online Business Show with me, Sarah, and I wanted to share a life update, especially because so many of you resonated with my episode about moving from what I thought was going to be my dream life and my absolute paradise and where I am now. And I just remember when I did that episode, by the way, if you have not listened to it, it was from in and around December of 2023. So if you want to go back and listen to that one, it was actually quite popular. And I just wanted to share an update of what's been happening and how we've been feeling since we moved. And so to have a little bit of a recap, we ended up moving from Toronto to Nicaragua in January of 2018. So a while ago now. And I just thought that that was going to be the be all end all of, absolute paradise. And it was just going to be so amazing. And it was in a lot of ways. And I was able to get to a place in my life where I was so much more stress-free than what I was in Toronto. I had so much more free time. I had so much more access to nature, which was absolutely amazing. And we ended up building a beautiful house in the mountains of Nicaragua where it's just nice and fresh and the environment is very lush. There's a lot of nature and it was just such a nice idea. And I feel like I put all of my eggs in that basket of just wanting to rebuild there and feeling like that was just going to be our forever home. And it really dawned on me after the pandemic that that wasn't my paradise. And it was not where I wanted to be long term. And I actually wanted to be surrounded by a bigger community that I had created both for myself and for my family. And where I was living, I just couldn't get the community that I truly desired that would really, really fulfill me. And so by the beginning of 2023, we had made the decision that we were going to move and we just didn't really know where. And, we didn't build our house with the idea that we were going to move, especially not build the house and then move within a few years. That was not in the cards at all. And a part of me was still really sad that I felt like I didn't get to enjoy my house to the fullest when I made the decision that we really had to move, that I had to move both for us and our family, but also for my own mental health. And I have now been in San Juan del Sur, or San Juan del Sur, if you are Spanish speaking. And we didn't really know if we were going to stay here or not. And I just wanted to give a life update and just, talk a bit more about fulfillment and finding fulfillment in places, but also finding fulfillment internally and how the environments that we are in can drastically affect our internal feeling of fulfillment. And so back in January of 2023, we were kind of thinking about where we wanted to move. We didn't know. I actually booked us a whole bunch of flights so that we went to Portugal and then we went to Toronto and then we went to Vancouver. And so my whole idea was like, okay, well, we'll just do a survey of each and every one of these places. And then we can decide which one of these places is going to be our next home. And it was interesting because throughout that timeline, Jorge, my husband, had gotten a visitor at his brewery that he co-owned with his friend. And it just turned out that he was from Toronto and he had a family of 4 children and he was living in this area of Nicaragua and his children were in this really great international school. And so we were like, we need to see what this is all about. And he even invited us over to San Juan. And so we decided to come here exactly 1 year ago in June of 2023. And we took an entire week here. So we stayed at this really cute little Airbnb. And, I couldn't really see it fully. I couldn't really see how this was going to be our new home or, that this was going to be a really, really great place for us. But I did understand, and I think we both understood, that this was a pretty great place for us to try out, to see whether or not we were going to like it. And so instead of moving to Portugal, Toronto, or Vancouver, as I had originally planned in the beginning of the year, we were like, well, let's just move to this small beach town in the south of Nicaragua and let's see what this is all about, because there's so many different expats who live there. There's so many people from all over the world who are living there. And I think we owe it to ourselves just kind of see what it's all about. And so we ended up booking a few rental properties up until June of 2024. So literally up until the end of this month, at the time that I'm recording this podcast episode. And our whole idea was we're just going to see, we're going to put our son in school. We're going to put our son in school until June, so until the end of the school year. And then we will probably not end up staying here. That was our whole idea. We will end up moving back to one of those three places that I had spoken about, either going to be moving to Portugal, Toronto, or Vancouver. And so at that point in time, it sounded like Toronto was probably our best bet, just to kind of go back to a lot of what we had known and a lot of what was really familiar. But instead, we got to San Juan, and a whole new world of opportunity just completely opened up. And I think that this is the really beautiful thing about taking risks in your life, is you never know where anything is going to lead, but you always know that you're going to get so much more and you're going to learn so much more than you are from staying exactly where you are. And I think it's just absolutely incredible that as human beings, we can change our environments. And when we change our environments, we change our entire outlook of life. And we're presented with new people in our lives that show us completely different opportunities on how to live. And I really do feel like San Juan has been that for us. And so a lot of my complaints about living in the mountains of Nicaragua, about living in Esteli, were that I didn't really have a community of people who understood me, because there weren't any foreigners. There wasn't anyone who's multicultural there. And also that there weren't really a lot of outdoor activities that people participated in, let alone women who participated in outdoor activities. And so that's a huge joy in my life, is being able to go out and walk my dog and listen to a podcast, or just go out and go for a walk and listen to a podcast or listen to an audiobook. And I wasn't able to do that where I was living. It just was not a part of a local culture, and it wasn't a part of the day-to-day culture. There was also no outdoor sports. There was hiking wasn't really a thing, even though there were so many mountains in the area. I could cycle, and so biking was a thing that I was doing, but I was very, very limited to the amount of outdoor activities that I could do and ways that I could just de-stress by being out in nature, which seems very ironic because I was surrounded by nature, but there weren't any organized activities for me to be doing. And so my hope for moving to somewhere else was that I was going to be able to have a lot of these activities that would help me get the mental decompression that I needed on a day-to-day basis from my work. Because what I found I was doing when I was living there was I was just overworking, because there wasn't really a whole lot else for me to do. And I decided that I didn't want to live my life that way. And I especially didn't want to live my life thinking I can't wait to travel to this next place because I don't like where I am right now. So it reached a point where I just had to be real with myself and really honest with myself that where we built our dream home and where we built our entire life was no longer a place that I really wanted to live. And I was also really concerned that living by the beach was not going to give me what I needed, and was not going to give me the community that I needed, was not going to give me the access to outdoor sports that I needed. It's like, well, I'm still in the same country. How are things really going to shift that much? And so I was skeptical. I was skeptical to come here. I didn't really think that we would want to be here for more than the 6 or 7 months. And I was just kind of ready to move back home. But when we got here and when we started to integrate ourselves with the community, I started to understand that a lot of people who live here have the same mindset and they have the same mentality that I do. Everyone who's living here is really here to give themselves a better quality of life. They're here to give themselves more time with their children. and they're here to give themselves more time outside in nature. And so when I started to talk to more and more people, I was like, hey, we have so much in common. This is so great. I found women who wanted to surf and who wanted to go out and surf with me. I found people who liked going for walks on the beach. I found communities of people who didn't really drink much alcohol. And so I started to bond in ways that I couldn't even bond with some of my friends back home because they didn't understand even the mentality of leaving home to find a better quality of life. And then it just dawned on me, and I was just like, this is the ultimate fulfillment. It's not necessarily moving back home. It's moving to a place or understanding that where you are has all of these aspects of what it is that you need. And so we decided to purchase a home in a community where we can literally just walk our dogs at any point in time in the day and have shade on our walk because it does get very hot here. And also just have these like really beautiful, inspiring views on a daily basis. And so now anytime that I bring my dogs for a walk, or even if I go for a walk on my own, I can put in my podcast or I can put in my audiobook, and I can just like take a walk in these really beautiful hills overlooking the ocean. And I'm like, damn, how did I never think about this before? How did this never become a possibility before up until this point? And I really do feel like people are placed in your life for a reason. And so if it wasn't for the father who came to my husband's brewery and told him about where he lived and invited us to come here, it may have not have even been on our radar to be able to move here. And now that I have this fulfillment where I can go for my walks and go to yoga studios. There's so many yoga studios here, which is so nice. And, even have access to different spas, have access to a gym, have access to going for a walk on the beach every single day, have access to outdoor sports like surfing. Now I'm like, hey, this is really good. I really like this. And not only do I really like this, this actually fulfills all of the different things that I was going to move back home to be able to fulfill. And I no longer have this need or this necessity to want to travel constantly. And so I actually really, really enjoy where I live to the point where I don't really feel like I need to be traveling every month or every few months. And I also don't have that big desire or have a gap that needs to be filled in terms of friendships, in terms of really, really high quality friendships where I feel really fulfilled, where we have the same interests. All of that has kind of fallen into place. And I wanted to record this episode and show you all of this just to remind you that your life can look drastically different if you take a stance on what it is that you want and find ways to create that for yourself. And one of my fears for moving here was that I was just going to be in the same spot, and that, me not going out for walks or me not connecting to nature was my own personal excuse, and that it wasn't a byproduct of my environment. So I was so afraid that I was going to find out that I was the problem and that I just couldn't get my act together to be able to do the things that I really wanted to do, that I should just force those things on myself in the environment that I wasn't really growing in. And now from living here for the past 7 months, I've realized that your environment really does dictate a lot of how you feel. And you can change your environment and change your entire life. And environment doesn't necessarily have to mean changing cities or changing countries. It could also be changing the people that you spend time with, changing your circle of friends, starting to find different communities where you can hang out. Maybe it's even changing apartments and changing homes and deciding that you're going to hit up a new yoga studio or hit up a new meditation studio one day. It's deciding where you want to spend your time. And for me, it looked like changing cities. It didn't necessarily need to be changing countries, which is what I thought that it needed to mean. And for you, it could mean something entirely different. So I want this to inspire you to really think about your life and think about the things that fulfill you in your life, because I thought my house was going to be such a great source of fulfillment. And as soon as I got that home, that everything would fall into place because I'd finally have a home office that I loved, or I'd finally have a view from my bed that I absolutely loved. I'd finally have the bathtub that I really wanted. And I got all of those things and I was able to create that and it looked beautiful. And yes, it was fulfilling to a certain extent, but it wasn't fulfilling me internally to the level that I had thought that it would. And now I live in a smaller home, but I am so much more fulfilled. And I'm so much more fulfilled even with the community that I'm in and the neighborhood that I'm in. And it's not a home that I chose. It's not a home that I designed myself. But once again, those things don't actually matter as much as we think they do. And the internal fulfillment that I now feel from having made these shifts is just so amazing. And some of my friends just constantly remind me to think back to the time where I was really struggling and I was talking so much about how I was lacking in so many things. And now, the amazing people that they feel like they need to show me that every time that I talk about how great life is here. They're just like, you made it. You did it. You did this for yourself. You accomplished this. You got yourself out of something that wasn't serving you. And if you're going through the same thing, I want to remind you that you are so capable of doing that for yourself, whether it is moving countries or moving cities, or whether it's just stepping out of an environment that no longer serves you. There is so much greatness on the other side of it. And I'm 7 months into that, being on that other side. And I can tell you without a doubt that it was one of the best decisions that we could have ever made. And I want you to feel inspired by it and inspired to do something different with your life that's going to help you feel the same. So thank you so much for listening. If you did feel inspired by this episode and you want to share it with a friend, feel free to do that. Please share it with any friends that you feel like need to hear this episode. And if you liked it, hit subscribe, hit a like, give us a comment, give us a review. It always helps to get the podcast in the hands of more people who truly need it. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarahjlorero.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.